Okay, so welcome back to返學 DSE Biology, and we are now in chapter 12, talking about the plant's reproduction. And to discuss everything, let's define it and understand the significance of reproduction. So reproduction is to produce offspring for the continuation of a species, that is, ensure that you have someone to success your things. So there will be generally two types. One type is asexual reproduction, and another type is sexual reproduction. For asexual reproduction, the parents and also the offspring will be genetically identical, which means they're the same and they need to undergo the mitotic cell division, which you learn in chapter 11. And for sexual reproduction, and the parents and the offspring will be genetically different, and it takes the mitotic cell division you learn in chapter 11, and it also requires the step fusion of gametes, that is the male gametes and the female gametes come together. As for asexual reproduction, there we generate two examples, that is the binary fission and also the vegetative propagation. For binary fission, remember the example, E. coli, which is a kind of bacteria, and it will result in an exponential growth. While for the vegetative propagation, usually we will use onion, ginger, or other plants, and they will use a vegetative plant to become a new plant. And here are the examples of different storage organs. So you can see there are so many terms here. So don't worry, do your best to remember, like one or two will be great. And you also will require to remember the example, like potato is equivalent to the stem tube, bud is for onion, and the comb is the taco, and the rhizome is the ginger. And also, for human, we can also introduce a artificial vegetative propagation. That is, by cutting the leaf of the African violet, we can produce another African violet with the same genetic content. After the asexual reproduction, let's talk about the sexual reproduction. For the sexual reproduction, we will need flowers and also seed. And there will be four main parts for the flower. There's the cortex, corolla, and the stamen, and also the carpus. There are again so many terms in this chapter, so do your best to remember it or the shape of it. If you can't remember, just leave it, because the spelling is no longer a core part in the biology studies. The point is you understand the general picture and flow. And here are the functions of each part. Like for the cortex, as to protect the inner part, and the corolla is brightly colored for insect pollination, and it also will contain the nail scale because it will produce the honey. That is what we generally understand for the insect to feed on and extract it for the pollination. And here is the structures of the carpus. It contains the stigma, style, and ovary. For the ovary, it will also contain ovaries. But inside the ovaries, it will be the female gametes. So you can see there is a general decreasing sign of the size. There is the ovary, ovaries, and also the gametes. And as the substrate of the ovaries, it contains the integument, villus, ovum, and also the microplus. And if you really want to know more, which you are not required, I would suggest you to have other readings, because in the DSE biology requirement is no longer requiring to a very in-depth understanding for this structure. And for the stigma, it will contain a long filament and also the anther. For the anther, it will contain the pollen sac, which will generate the pollen grains containing the male gametes. For the pollen grains, for the pollination, it will transfer of the pollen grains to the stigma. Generally, there will be two methods. There is the insect pollination and also the wind pollination. So it depends on the activity features that the plant is using. That is like the size of the carpus, whether it is sensitive, the location of the anthers, properties of the pollen grains, and the properties of the stigma. So in your revision, so you may have a one-sided revision, that is to revise, like if it is an insect pollination, what will it take, and then if it is not similar to what you revised, then it will be the wind pollination applied. And inside the pollination, there will be two types, that is the self-pollination and also the cross-pollination. So you may notice there is a spelling mistake here. And for the cross-pollination, it will involve two gametes from two different plants. So we will have a greater genetic variation. So plants prefer to use cross-pollination indeed. However, most of the plants that you know will have both the male gamete and the female gamete in the same plant. However, for some of them, they may only contain one sex, unisex, so it will also increase the chance of cross-pollination. And for the germination of the pollen grains and fertilization, once the pollen grain land and then the stigma will stimulate the germination of the pollen grains. That means that a tube will be developed and then to grow through the micropores, and then finally it will lead to the fusion of the male and also female gametes, and that is fertilization. After fertilization, there are different parts, and these parts can also include back to when it is on the flower side. So you have to remember what is before and after. So the ovum after fertilization, it will become the embryo, and the integument will become the seed coat, and so on and so forth. This part is something you have to pay more attention to it. As for the disposal of seeds and fruits, the importance is it will allow the species to colonize a new area and also reduce the overcrowding and competition with the parents, and also allow the daughter cell to escape from the disease that the parents may have. So in order to disperse, so there are some methods like the wind, water, animals, and explosion. For the water one is the coconut, and then for the animals there are other examples like the banana or apples or orange and so on and so forth. So you have to remember some examples for each method. And then you also are required to understand the genetic content in various parts of it. So final part will be comparing the asexual reproduction and also the sexual reproduction. For the asexual reproduction, the advantage will be having the desirable characters keep easily, and then it doesn't require an external reagent because everything you do is just by yourself. However, you also result in overcrowding, and then you maybe have a poor adaptation. And because you are very near to the parents, so you may have a rapid growth. However, because it's also very near to the parents, and there will be a direct transmission of the disease from the parents may occur. As for the sexual reproduction, it will ensure that there are some variations. However, the desirable characters cannot be kept easily, and as there will be a seed disposal, overcrowding can be prevented, and also the transmission of disease. However, you will always require an external reagent, and the population growth may be slow. So here is an extract from the HAEA document. You need to know about asexual reproduction, that is binary fission and also vegetative propagation. After that, we move to the sexual reproduction of plants, that is for the flowers and also pollination. Finally, we will have a fertilization, that is the fusion of male and female gametes. And finally, we need to know about the significance of seed and fruit and also how they are dispersed. So this will be the end of chapter 12. So hope to see you guys next time. Bye bye.